Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know it's been a while. A lot of changes. Been moving. As you can see, I'm in a different place. Lots of busy stuff going on. Although I'm back, we're back. And we're here today to talk about the next season in our, I don't know what to call this series, Doctor Who season 2 review. So what I did was I was in Scotland last week and I found this in HMV, so Doctor Who season 2, like the Blu-ray collection. Now, I've always been on the fence about Blu-rays because they come out a little bit after I've got a fair few of the DVDs, and I know that they're all on iPlayer, but I'm in enough now with the DVDs that I kind of feel like I've got to finish them. And I would also like to get the Blu-rays, but I thought, you know what, I like 60s. It's my favorite era of the show. Let's just get season 2. Screw it. I'll still stick with the DVDs for today's review, but just to mention that. So I'm going to be giving my thoughts on everything this season. Just a few pre-thoughts. This is a season that I think historically I always quite liked. Sorry. But I think my overall thought right now is it's probably not going to be rated as highly as season 1. But let's see. Let's see what happens when we get on to the first story. Okay, so first story here, we've got Planet of Giants. Now, I had to re-record this, by the way, because my audio was all messed up. So this is my second time talking about 80% of these stories. So Planet of Giants first. It's been a little bit since I watched this one, probably about 6 months. It is really just like these visuals and special effects I actually quite like. I think they look really, really fucking cool, especially with something that's like 61 years old at this point. Very, very old, still very good. My biggest gripe with the story is just that it's all a bit boring, and the not to go into too many spoilers, but the two different plot points of the Doctor, Susan, Ian, and Barbara that are all shrunk, and then the people who aren't shrunk on Earth talking about the thing that shrunk them. They all feel really weirdly disconnected. It doesn't feel like either one's impacting the other. It's just like the Doctor and crew are just running away from ants, or I can't remember. Was a cat? I can't remember. But whatever they're running away from because they're tiny. I suppose at a time it would have been very, very, very interesting because from a special effects point of view, this would have been very interesting to the average 1960s TV viewer. But I think from an actual story perspective, it's not that good. It's a little bit bland. It's a three-parter as well, which is strange. I know there's something gone on where there was a part 3 and a part 4, and then something happened. I don't know whether it got cancelled, and then they ended up having to merge both of them into part 3 and sort of condense it. But for a three-parter, I felt like it dragged a bit for a three-parter. Yeah, I don't remember liking this one at all. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10. Like, it's not bad. Like, there's some interesting stuff in here. It is really not bad, but it's definitely nowhere close to good. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. I think that's fair. One that I definitely am a fan of, though, is the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Now, this is obviously a classic. It's a classic of the Hartnell era, classic of Classic Who, it's classic of all of Who, let's be real. This is one of the best stories of the Hartnell era. Now, when I first watched this quite a while ago, I was probably like 14 years old. I never used to like this one. I just think it was quite long, quite boring, quite dull. But rewatching it with a bit more of a mature head, which I found has helped for a lot of Classic Who. This one is really, really dark. Like, this is not a standard Doctor turns up, Doctor sees aliens about to take over, Doctor stops aliens taking over, Doctor leaves. This is Doctor turn up, and the invasion is finished, right? There's a few resistance groups around the place, but this is it. This is the Daleks have won. They've taken over the Earth. And it goes from there, and you get to see the fucking grim world people are living in. The little bit of hope they have just goes, and then you've got Susan sort of falling in love with one of the, I can't remember what the guy's name is, one of the people from the Resistance, who, of course, she eventually stays with, and you can only assume started a life with. I think there's some things on Big Finish that I haven't listened to. Um, but Hartnell's speech at the end is obviously very well liked, and I think it is performed phenomenally, in all fairness. And it's just a really strong story. It's very, very dark. You sort of the reality that's built here, especially for 60s, is there's a lot of urgency. There's a lot of real threat that you don't get. I don't think we really got, and up until this point, I say the Reign of Terror because that's one I really, really like. There's a lot of threat and there's a lot of urgency. But yeah, this is one of the few from this era that really piles it on, and it feels like a bit more of a modern story. I'm gonna give this one a 9. Um, To be honest, when I recorded this before, I give it an 8.5. I'm going to give it a 9. I think it is that good. I think it is really, really strong. It is 6 parts, and you can. We all struggle with 6 parts sometimes, let's be honest. But it is really one of the better ones of his era. And then following that, following Susan's exit, we have The Rescue that introduces Vicky. This is the first introduction of a companion after one of the first 3 had left. So The Rescue is a small 2-part story that it does exactly that. It just introduces Vicky. That's the whole purpose of the story. And not that that's a bad thing, but it does sort of limit the. It puts a ceiling to how good the story can get. I don't think The Rescue is bad by any means. You can finish it in under an hour. It's a nice, easy one. Sort of similar to The Edge of Destruction, as it's decent, but you can never think it's that great because it's just a small 2-part. They don't really have the time. The stuff with Coke Williams is quite interesting. I think the way that all panned out is. I was personally shocked. Not shocked, but I personally was. It surprised me. Maybe I'm just dumb as shit, and that's a really easy one that we also come in. I don't know, but I quite like that. I'm gonna give The Rescue a 6.5, and that's kind of harsh. But personally, I don't think I can give it like a 7 or anything. I think a 7 is a baseline for a good story, and I don't think The Rescue can kind of hit that just because of sort of the box it's in. But I don't think it's bad by any means, and it's a nice little 2-part just to easily get through, and it's a good introduction to Vicky as well. Okay, and then in the same box set as The Rescue, we have The Romans. Now, this is for a very, very different reason than the Dalek Invasion of Earth, also one of Hartnell's strongest and one of the strongest of the season. Now, the Dalek Invasion of Earth being a very dark, grim tale, this is definitely a much more light-hearted one. Hartnell in this is clearly absolutely living the dream. He's obviously loving it. He's hilarious in this one. They're all hilarious. It's a very, for humour that is 60-something years old, it's genuinely quite funny. It is a much easier watch. The guy who plays Nero does a really good job as well. Nero is so kind of likable and such a dick at the same time that yeah, it's like perfect balance. This is just a really well balanced story. It's only 4 parts as well. You can get through it nice and easy, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's a bit of threat there, but it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it is a little bit at the root of just a doctor just getting all excited, running around other parts of Earth's history. I'm going to give this one a 9 as well. It is that good. I'm going to give it a 9 for a completely different reason. Dalek Invasion of Earth. It never fails just to be an entertaining piece of television, and I think that is something very commendable. Especially, I think the humor being as good as it is, or outdated it is a very, very strong point in his favour. So I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10 as well. And then falling straight off a fucking cliff, we have the Web Planet. Now, I've heard a lot about this one before I got into it about the special effects, and I know there's always that big divide of it, how shit is too shit. Personally, I don't mind how bad this story looks. I just think it's fucking dull. I remember I had to slog, I had to force myself to get through this one. It's a 6-parter, and it's a 6-parter that drags. And combine that with some of the pacing issues the 60s has, and yeah, it's just bad. It is bad, and I don't like calling 60s stuff bad. I feel like I don't like calling classic Who bad, but 60s as well is just the budget and the resources are so limited. But I don't think I just a lot of the ones we spoke about already had limited resources. Look how high I've rated them. I'm gonna give this one a 1 out of 10. It's so hard to watch. It is so hard to watch. It honestly is. Interesting concept, but it is just bee people running from bug people for however long the 6-parter is, like 2.5 hours. It is not. It is not. I'm gonna give it a 1. I think it's so boring. Okay, then next up we have The Crusade. So I literally watched The Crusade about an hour and a half ago. I was like, right, it's the only one I haven't watched this video. Let's just get it done. I quite enjoyed it. Obviously, 2, it is the only only story in the season with any missing episodes actually, and I actually quite liked it. I don't think it's anything crazy. It's nothing to shout about. It's not one of the best historical. It's not one of the best of the season. But it was pretty good. I really liked the scene where the king's sister, the prince, I think it's her name Joan, where her and her brother are just kind of arguing. He's saying he's going to get her to marry Alakia, and she's like, "No, fuck off. I'm not doing that." And that's a very, very powerful scene, especially for the 60s as well. I really like that, and there There is some darker parts in this, sort of where there's, I can't remember the guy's name. He's talking to Barbara about what happened to his family and how his house was burned down. All that, the way that's sort of tone there is actually quite dark, and it does sort of make you think a little bit about the situation the guys are in. But it doesn't have that same hit that the Reign of Terror does, which is a historical I'm always going to bring up because I think it's so fucking good. Of like, these people are in the shit, like they are complete, like they are in some serious danger, and they need to get the fuck out of France now. I don't quite feel that with the Crusades, that these guys need to get out of here now, and the ending is also a little bit. Oh, we're in danger. Oh, the TARDIS is here. Can we go have a look? Bye. Yeah, it's not dreadful. I'd say it's decent. I'll give the Crusade a 7 out of 10. Like, I think it is the bottom line of a decent Doctor Who story. It's for a historical. I mean, it doesn't drag. It's only 4 parts. I know some of the old historicals do drag a little bit, but I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. It is pretty decent, but I wouldn't give it any more than that. And next up, we have the Space Museum. Now, when I was first getting into Classic Who, I was about 13 years old, and I think I'd watched a video, and a guy had said that the Space Museum was his favourite Hartnell story, so my expectations going into this were quite high. And I've watched it a few times, and I don't mind this one. I do not think it is crazy good. I also don't think it's as bad as a lot. I've heard a lot of bad things about Space Museum. I don't think it's that bad. The concept of this is brilliant, by the way. It is really, really, really good. You know, you've got the Doctor and crew to get there, and they sort of realise that they'd been here before, and then they see themselves in the cage, and that cliffhanger's fucking phenomenal. By the way, one of the best cliffhangers of the season, with them all just sat there looking at themselves in the cage, or in the display. Sorry, not really cage. And then the rest of the story is them trying to figure out how can they avoid the actions that the versions of themselves in the display made to stop themselves going in there. And there's a lot of second guessing, a lot of questioning, and I really like that. I think Peter Purvis's brother, the guy who plays Stephen, I think is also in this story as well, which is an interesting little fact. But on the whole, this one is dogs turned up. I personally, I like the Space Museum. I think the concept is better than the execution. I'm gonna give the Space Museum 7 out of 10. I think it gets a little bit of a bad rep that it probably doesn't fully deserve, and it's not one I jump to rewatch. You know, I'm gonna give it a 6. I'm gonna change mine. I just realized I would not rewatch the Space Museum. I would not get all excited and say I'm gonna watch the Space Museum. I'm gonna give this one a 6. And then we have the Chase. I actually rewatched the Chase a week ago, maybe. And I'm gonna be honest, first time I watched this story, I loved it. Watched it again, it's so bad. I cannot believe the drop. Now I know sometimes if my expectations are too high, it's gonna not live up to them, but this is just, I was so boring. I was so bored throughout this whole story. This is another one. It's a 6-parter as well, and if you're not careful in the 60s, the 6 parts drag like a bitch. They drag so much. I didn't like this one at all. And then, the last episode with the mechanoids is kind of interesting because Stephen comes in, and the exit of Ian and Barbara, by the way, is handled very, very well. I know it's all quite quick and abrupt, but within the story, it's quite quick. It's like they don't know they're going to be able to get home. And the second they do, they evaluate, and they're like, shit, like, we can't, like, we might never be able to go home again. Like, this has been great, but it's a home, you know? And I think a bit at the end there, sort of where they're looking on it goes through all of the Ian and Barbara. They basically have a montage of, they're back home in London and they're doing all the London shit that people in London do. And then he zooms out, and there it was, all you've seen was actually the Doctor and Vicky watching them on the, is it space time vision, whatever, the thing that they could look into the past and see. And you can see Vicky getting all excited, happy they're safe, and you see Hartnell just fucking freeze, and you just see the sadness on his face, and that is just phenomenal acting. He's so good. I mean, he's one of the best Doctors. He really is. But yeah, I think this is when the whole story's boring. The exit of the companions is handled really well. I'm gonna give this one a 3. There's a lot of good moments in it actually, but as a whole story, it's boring. I don't like the weird animatronic things. When I first watched, I only know that animatronics because I've like looked it up. Like when I first watched it, I was like, how are these people like not dying? Because they're not, obviously the budget and special effects can't really show that it is animatronic. I really, really, really liked a lot of the shots towards the end of each of the episodes, where it sort of zooms out and shows like for example in that one it shows it's like a Halloween fun house, right? And then the other one where it shows the Mary Celeste, and it's like the Daleks turning up is the reason that the Mary Celeste are missing. I like things like that. I like when it plays. I'm gonna give it a 3. I think I'm gonna give it a 4. That three's really harsh. Three's really really harsh. I just don't like it. It's just too long and too boring. But there's a lot of really really cool moments. But as a whole story, I don't like it. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. And then the last one, season finale, we've got the Time Meddler. Now, this is one I watched twice. I watched the first time and thought it was very, very average. I watched it again and I genuinely enjoyed it. Genuinely quite enjoyed it. I was very locked in on this viewing. I was so invested. I got through it pretty quickly. It's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I think Peter Butterworth as the monk, has a pretty good performance, and I think it's played fairly well. The whole thing of him being one of the Doctor's race. Obviously, they're not called Time Lords at this point, but the whole leaning into him being one of the Doctor's race is pretty cool. Until Stephen and not Dodo, Stephen and Vicky discover the Time Meddler's TARDIS. That is such a good cliffhanger. Like the monk's got a TARDIS. I'm gonna give this one a 7.5. I'm gonna give this one a 7.5. Like it's not good, not that good, but it's pretty decent. I am a fan of this one. Okay, so adding up the average rating of these 9 stories gives an average rating of 6, so 6.0. Season 1 was rated 6.9 in the other episode, and I think I actually went through and ranked season 1 myself a week or so ago, and I think I put it a bit higher than that. But I'll stick with the one in the video because it keeps it easier. But season 2, yeah, I think this is what is generally considered Hartnell's strongest season by most people. I think my views on the episodes aren't too outrageous. Like people like the chase probably more than I do, but I do think it is not actually that good. I prefer season 1. I think the lows of this one in the Web Planet it's just crap. The chase, I don't personally like. And then it's one of those where you've got the rescue in, which isn't bad, but it's kind of never going to be that good. But no, I'm not. It's still one of my favorite eras of the 60s is my favorite decade of the show, and I do really like the William Hartnell era. So it still has a lot of those. It still has Hartnell as a Doctor, which is something I really really enjoy. But no, I want to know what you guys think of season 2. I want to know if I am the outlier, if it is most people do like this one. I will get season 3 out much faster than I got season 2. I promise you, I have only got to get through Dalek's Master Plan. I say only, I know it's quite a big one. I got through about half of it on audio at one point and then stopped listening. And I could do with giving the Myth Makers a re-listen, and maybe the Massacre. But other than that, I will be done with season 3 and get that one out as soon as possible. So let me know what you guys think. I'm interested to see what you think about season 2. And let me know what other video ideas you want, because I'm not just making these, but I want to put my focus into them as much as possible to make sure they're consistently coming out. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.